It's Bengals, it's Cardinals. It's a matchup of two teams not going to the playoffs. Plenty to discuss. We'll do it right now on a special Locked On crossover.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hi again, everyone, and welcome in to the Locked On Bengals and Locked On Cardinals podcast. I'm James Rapien, joined by Alex Clancy, and we're going to get you ready for clearly the biggest game of Week 17. It's Bengals and Cardinals at Paycor Stadium. Of course, this crossover is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Obviously, Alex, we cover two teams not going to the playoffs, so a special shout out to all of the everydayers that support us, that listen, that watch, and we're going to have you covered even during a holiday week like this. We're crossing over, looking ahead to Sunday's matchup. And Alex, I've followed some of what's gone on in Arizona, mostly from a fantasy perspective. But what's the biggest story here for the Arizona Cardinals with a couple of
James, for those that live in Cincinnati, let me maybe relay kind of a metaphor. Those car crashes you see on TV during the snow where there's 97 cars that just can't stop because there's snow on the freeway, and it's very slow and just slowly just mold into one big car with all little dents and stuff. That's been the Cardinals season pretty much throughout its entirety. Like, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong in the most fantastical way for it to go wrong. Mm-hmm. So in a year, much like with the Bengals, where it's like, hey, sky's the limit. I know things aren't perfect, but let's rip. They haven't. They've done the opposite of whatever ripping is. In so many words, RIP, dead on arrival kind of season for the Cardinals, unfortunately.
Yeah, it feels that way. And to me, it begins and ends with the Kyler Murray situation from a 1,000-foot view, because one thing that I've, especially over the past couple of weeks, really tried to hammer home is when you have Joe, you have the franchise quarterback, you can reset much faster. You can find defensive players that are going to make your defense better and do that. But finding the quarterback is much, much tougher. And the team the Bengals played last week, the Dolphins, they're going through that now with Tua. Yeah. It feels, for different reasons, but it feels like that's what's going on in Arizona right now with Jacoby Brissett starting for the past month plus.
The toughest part about it is, I mean, James, we've done these over, they don't play every year, but we've done enough over, the time with Kyler Murray since 2019. And I was always a Kyler guy over Cliff. He's winning in spite of Cliff Kingsbury, not because of him, things like that. When he got hurt against Tennessee, and then Jacoby Brissett went to Indy and unlocked this offense like we hadn't seen with Kyler Murray, I'm like, oh no. It was immediate. It's like, oh no. Yeah. Michael Wilson, Marv, Trey McBride down the field, not dinking and dunking, even without a run game. Jacoby Brissett comes off the street pretty much. And even though, he's had history with Cleveland and with Drew Petzing time, but and that's it. That was enough for me. And, he got put on IR, and the offense, the Cardinals lost a bunch of games, but the offense looks better with Jacoby Brissett than it did with Kyler Murray. And yes, there are like 5 teams or maybe 7 or 8 teams who absolutely know who their quarterback for the future is now. The other 20 or 22, 23 don't. And if you got a quarterback, you got a chance always. So I share that sentiment with you.
Yeah. And here in Cincinnati, it isn't the quarterback conversation, but it's everything else, because it feels like Zach Taylor's return is inevitable. It feels like they're not going to make major changes to the front office. So yeah, naturally it's like, all right, well, what do you want to happen? You want the best draft pick, but you look at this matchup, and I think given that Joe Burrow is starting, you would expect the Bengals to win this matchup. That doesn't mean that's going to happen. The Cardinals offense, you're right, has played well with Jacoby Brissett, but there are Bengals fans that are like, they're going to do this again. Last year, they won 5 straight, missed the playoffs. This year, they're already eliminated, but in a potential position to win 3 straight. And for what? To say they went 6-2 without Joe Burrow and everything would have been fine if he was healthy. And so I think that's sort of a concern among the fan bases. All right, well, if they finish strong, do they still think they're close? Because they're not. They need to add multiple proven pieces in free agency on defense, re-sign some of their guys on offense, and probably add a piece or two there as well. And we'll see if they do. We'll see if they know that they need to do that because last year they only added really one proven piece in free agency on defense, and it clearly wasn't enough.
So let me ask you this, because, they've had some success of late. Decades ago they had success, but, the Bengals and the Cardinals are not dissimilar in their history. Lost more than they've won during a large portion of their career. Sure, you have the Carson Palmer years, so did the Cardinals. Joe Burrow, making the Super Bowl run. The antithesis of what you're supposed to do to build a roster is pay wide receivers first. Like, that's just Cardinal sin number one, is it not? Even if they're your two best players outside of your quarterback. So when you look at it, T. Higgins is a wide receiver one, playing with a 0.1% or wide receiver. So them getting paid isn't an issue. But with the current state of the roster, is that like the sticking point for this? It's like, why did you pay this? Why did you do this? Or is like, listen, it was a necessary evil. You're just doing a little bit backwards.
Yeah. I think it's necessary because they drafted so poorly and they were so inactive in free agency. I don't know where that money would have gone. And paying T didn't, there's a two-headed monster here. They got the T. Higgins and Jamar Chase extensions done during free agency. They should have waited and focused on free agency. I think they were worried about what those deals would look like. In reality, they should have paid both guys sooner, but they didn't. So they waited. They should have pushed it a little more into the offseason, into April, so they could focus on free agency. Instead, I think they were worried about the numbers and the cap hits and all of those things when it came to Jamar and T. But on a overall level, like, I get that you don't need to pay two wide receivers for this team. I don't know who else they would have paid. Like, if you look at this roster, it's so top heavy. Like, and if you subtract T, like, we knew Trey Hendrickson was a question mark, and I think he's more likely to be a Cardinal than a Bengal. It seems like at this point next year. And I have no idea what the Cardinals cap situation is. I just think that he's probably going to leave in free agency. And so that's the tough spot. So I don't blame them. I think it was the right move, and it shouldn't have prevented them from making other moves in free agency, but either it did or they did for whatever reason, because maybe they thought that it was going to get fixed with the guys they've drafted. That hasn't happened. And so they really need to get aggressive here, because 3 straight years without the playoffs, with Joe Burrow at quarterback. I'll give you a mulligan in 2023 when he hurt the wrist. Last year he was healthy. This year you went 1-8 without him. If they would have went 4-5 without him, they'd be right in it with a couple of games to go.
Yeah, I mean, but like the Joe Burrow, it's fascinating because it's like it's the age-old question: would you rather have Joe Burrow for 9 games or a B-level quarterback for 17? It's just fascinating because of how special he is. Now, with the issues that the Bengals knew they were going to have going into the season, the Cardinals didn't have that. They thought that everything was ready to rip the third year in the rebuild with the draft. You would think with Walter Nolan and Will Johnson going 1-2 punch, them adding Josh Sweat, them adding Dalvin Tomlinson, bringing Calais Campbell back, having that team on defense ready to go with Kyler Murray coming in with Marvin, got the rookie cobwebs off, having Trey McBride, who had all pro trajectory, which we've seen this year, an improved offensive line, James Conner and Trey Benson. All the boxes were checked for them to actually compete this year at a very, very high level. And the opposite, pretty much out the gate, happened. They could have lost week 1 in New Orleans. They could have lost week 2 to Carolina. They lost to Tennessee in incredible fashion. And then, all these one-score games they weren't able to win, and now they're getting boat raced after the bye. It's like, this is what gets everybody fired. On top of that, and let me ask you this before we pivot, like, the Cardinals have been decimated is the term. They have more games missed due to injury by far than any team in the NFL in very key positions. Wow. Is that enough to bring Jonathan Gannon back if it were you for his final year of his contract? Or is like, you know what, dude, sometimes it doesn't matter how it looks, injuries or otherwise, you got to make a change.
What will they do at quarterback? What is the plan there? I think that's a huge part of it.
So here's the thing. I think if you run it back with Jacoby Brissett, you draft the right tackle, you draft the left guard, you have a run game that can rush the ball for over 100 yards more than once since week 8. Like, Jacoby Brissett is a competent, good leader at quarterback, and this is a terrible draft class. I would draft everything else and then either trade for a guy or draft one in 2027 when it's not a historically bad quarterback class. It's not perfect, but there's a lot less perfect situations at quarterback than even average ones in the NFL. So I think he's shown plenty.
Yeah, and so if that's the case, maybe you do bring Jonathan Gannon back because you don't want to hand the new coach a quarterback that isn't going to be here in 2027. Right. And maybe he is, but that would be probably my logic. And who knows, maybe Gannon and Taylor. I know Zach Taylor's probably going to be back. So there are some key matchups to talk about. I think Jacoby Brissett's going to be involved in those. We will continue the conversation with those matchups coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy the way it should be. And this holiday season is one of the best times for sports. You got all the bowl games. You got big basketball games. Obviously, the NFL is in full swing. Playoff pushes, not Bengals or Cardinals, but playoff pushes. And that's why you got to make the right call with PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the easiest way to get on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2-player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. And it adds an extra layer of excitement. Maybe you think that Jacoby Brissett is going to throw for more than his passing yards number in PrizePicks and his projection. And Joe Burrow is going to do the same. Boom. You can put those together and win big today. Download the PrizePicks app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. All right, let's get to these matchups, Alex, and plenty of big ones. I think that, well, we should start with the quarterbacks. We were on Jacoby Brissett, so let's start there. How this Bengals young defense does, and they've been very up and down, historically bad for a lot of the year. Last week, taking advantage of a matchup against Quinn Ewers. I feel like it's going to be much different against a veteran like Jacoby Brissett, someone that led the Patriots past the Bengals last year in week 1. That matchup alone is going to be interesting because you just mentioned it. He's a veteran. He's seen a lot. He's done pretty well with this Cardinals offense, and this Bengals defense has been bad for most of the season.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Unfortunately, it's not so much about the Bengals defense as it is Drew Petzing versus himself. Like, the offensive coordinator is probably going to be served his "we're not going to re-up you" papers at the end of the year. The problem with this offense is that, first of all, they haven't been able to run the ball. That's not necessarily on him. That James Conner and Trey Benson have been out. The problem is this offense is only equipped for one X receiver's numbers. So anybody that's played fantasy football over the last 6 weeks knows Michael Wilson's name now. That's what everybody was hoping that Marvin Harrison Jr. would be. Marvin's been out for the better part of the last 6 weeks. So it's been Trey McBride, it's been Michael Wilson with Jacoby Brissett, and Jacoby has fed them the rock. Like, this is Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase target numbers with T. Higgins out. Like, it is Madden on easy numbers. 30 targets between the two of them, 25 targets between the two of them. And then Marv comes back, everything drops off. Everything drops off. And Marv had a touchdown catch that he dropped last week. Jacoby Brissett, listen, should have had 2 more passing touchdowns last week. Jacoby Brissett is not the problem with this offense. He is trying his damnedest to be the catalyst. And it's like, for defensive perspective for the Bengals, if you don't stop Trey McBride, he's going to catch 15 passes. Like, that is a foregone conclusion. Jacoby Brissett finds his dudes who eat for him, and he feeds them and feeds them and feeds them.
Yeah, that is scary because the Bengals have been awful. I mean, awful at guarding tight ends all season long. There's not a tight end that hasn't beaten them in one form or facet. It feels like Pat Freiermuth on Thursday Night Football. Plenty of other matchups like that where it's just been, even Darren Waller last week had multiple nice plays, and that was with Quinn Ewers at quarterback. So buckle up, Bengals fans, because I don't really know how they're going to stop him. And in the tight ends, they're so tough because for this Bengals defense, because they have rookie linebackers, their top cover corner is DJ Turner, but he's going to lose that size matchup against every tight end. And so what do you do? And that's, you got to start with Trey McBride and trying to slow him down. He's really, really good.
Well, and tell me about this, because Garrett Williams, Cardinals lead corner, is out with an Achilles. The Cardinals, again, him and Walter Nolan last week, they cannot stay healthy. And these are now scary into week 5, week 7, week 8 of next season injuries. So you hope that nobody gets injured for the rest of the year. I mean, let alone at any time. But you're going to be seeing Will Johnson, number 0, rookie out of Michigan. he's going to go up against either T. Higgins or Jamar Chase. Talk to me about how good Joe Burrow is at exposing weaknesses in the secondary. And I know that's super general, but when you have those two dudes, and his acumen, it's got to be a nightmare for opposing DBs.
It is. Yeah, it is. It would be just like if he's going up against the Bengals defense. Well, then Mike Gesicki and Noah Fant, when he's healthy, might have 22 catches. Because he can he's like, oh, well, if you take Jamar away, I'll lean on T. And that's what happened early last week against the Dolphins. They were playing a little single coverage downfield. And so they're like, all right, I'm going to throw it deep. And T. Higgins really got the Bengals offense jump started with a 35-yard catch. It was a great ball, great catch. And that's what they'll do. And if you play double-double, well, then, maybe you do take away Jamar for most of the game and T for most of the game. But then Joe's relying on Chase Brown, and he'll find Mike Gesicki and Andre Osavash. So he's been really good at picking his poison, and they do a good job of getting Jamar Chase open. He has 110 catches. He's 17 away from tying last year's number. Obviously, he led the NFL in receptions last year. So maybe he gets there. T. Higgins, 10 touchdowns, probably going to fall short of 1,000 yards on the season. And part of that's Joe Burrow's been out, but second straight year with 10 touchdowns. They're just really tough to contain. And that's if you're fully healthy. If you play, if you try to double both guys or cloud them, it matters, but they're still going to get theirs. And that's before Joe finds these other guys. So I think that's Joe's best attribute, or one of them, is being able to read a defense, find where it's weakest, and making the right decision.
Yeah, it's kind of, I always go back to the Drew Brees years with Devery Henderson and Marcus Colston and Robert Meacham. It's like, don't know who it's going to be. It's going to be somebody, and somebody's going to be open, and somebody's going to get all the targets one day. Obviously a little different because Jamar is elite of elite. Chase Brown terrifies me in this matchup, especially because they've realized that Chase Brown was still on the roster midway through the season. Yeah. I know a lot of that had to do with Joe being out. I want to ask you this because I'm a football nerd, and this may not necessarily be with this matchup, but it's about the Bengals. Isn't there a world where the Bengals need to go get a starting quarterback to play backup next year for Joe Burrow? Like with this offense, with him being injured, how he's been, I'm not saying he's prone, whatever it is, this locomotive has the opportunity to not slow down if you pony up a little extra cash to have a backup, like an old school Jimmy G, not him, but what he was as a backup with the Raiders and the Rams and otherwise. Like, is that a conversation?
Yeah, I think it should be. And you just need, it can't crumble if he misses 4 games.
Right.
Like go 2-2 when Joe's out. And it was so bad with Jake Browning that they had to trade for Joe Flacco. I don't know. Is Joe Flacco going to be open to being Joe Burrow's backup? I would be open to that. I think that could work. And Joe Flacco performed pretty darn well. It was similar for most of that run, I would say, like 1,000-foot view to Jacoby Brissett, where they were putting up numbers. They were still losing games, but they were effective. And at the end, the magic had kind of worn out a little bit, and part of that had to do with Joe Flacco suffering a shoulder injury. But he gave them a shot, and they should have won more than one game without Joe Burrow and one game with Flacco at quarterback. It didn't work out that way, but he wasn't the reason why. So yeah, I think that should be a huge priority, and it should be someone like Jacoby Brissett or Joe Flacco or someone like that Phil Rivers, dare I say. I'm kidding. But, like someone like that can read a defense and get you out of a game with a win and hold serve for a few weeks if that goes down. And
all you need is a guy that can just throw the ball 20 yards down the field with some sort of accuracy, and like with the Cardinals,
and read a defense and not get confused right away. And yes.
I mean, the Phillip Rivers thing is kind of fascinating where it's like, man, quarterbacking used to be so much better just an average level. Like he's just doing this coming off the street. Doesn't matter at 44. The Cardinals defense now is the Bengals defense during the first 7 or 8 weeks of the season. They're giving up 40 burgers like it's Halloween, and that's candy. So this is something that is nightmare fuel for the Cardinals right now, especially with the season lost. Now with Walter Nolan gone, with Garrett Williams gone, Will Johnson and Denzel Burke, 2 rookies leading at the cornerback position. No real semblance of a pass rush, really, that we've seen. So this is going to be all systems go. If you've got Joe Burrow in your fantasy football championship, you're welcome. You're welcome. This is going to be a bad day. Weather notwithstanding, I don't think there's going to be any sort of real inclement weather. So should be cool and clear, and Joe Burrow will have a day.
Man, yeah, I lean your way. I checked the FanDuel over under. It was 53.5, and the over might be an easy one. We'll dive into keys to victory for this playoff preview. All right, I'll stop making jokes for this matchup between Bengals and Cardinals coming up next. All right, let's keep things rolling with a playoff preview. Like I said, it's Bengals, it's Cardinals. It could really be a fun game, a back and forth offensive spectacular, plenty of fireworks. Sign me up for that. If it's meaningless football from a postseason standpoint, well, then I'll take a 70-point game between the two teams, both teams in the 30s going back and forth. What would you say, Alex, are the keys for the Cardinals to snap their losing streak and get on the winning side?
Figure out wide receiver one. Like see, the thing is, because they're going to have to outscore the Bengals. You're not going to be able to stop the locomotive. And I say this with longer lasting impressions. Like we say tongue in cheek, like, yeah, this is going to be a fun game. Okay. If Marvin Harrison Jr. gets the wide receiver one moniker ripped away from him by Michael Wilson, that's going to have lingering effects. Now, with Drew Petzing most likely not coming back as OC, it may be 6-1, and it may not matter that much. If there's a new offense, it's going to be fun and more West Coasty and stuff. But this is now becoming a thing with Marvin Harrison Jr. Michael Wilson had the acrobatic Cirque du Soleil catch that ended up being a touchdown last week. Marvin Harrison Jr. tried to catch a ball like you were a 6-year-old catching a kickball when you were playing kickball with the ball super big. And you had
what's going with him? Like, what's up with him?
I don't know. He makes magical things look super easy, and other things, elementary things, look not. Like, this is how I tweeted it out. And it's not exact, but for Bengals fans especially, this will kind of translate. Michael Wilson is Jacoby Brissett. Marvin Harrison Jr. is Kyler Murray. Where it's like the ceiling for Marv is definitely higher. We've seen magic, just like with Kyler. But if you want the metronome, if you want that equilibrium wide receiver, Michael Wilson can run every route. He catches contested balls. He's 6'3". He's not the fastest, but he just produces when everybody knows he's getting the ball, which has happened over the last 6 weeks. That's the best I can describe it. But yeah, it's frustrating. It's because Jamar Chase came in and he's like, I'm the guy. I'm a Hall of Famer immediately on the field. And you thought Marv could be something like that, and it hasn't been close.
Is there any scenario where he's not a Cardinal next year?
No, absolutely not. Unless it's like mid-season and like State Farm Stadium's on fire and it's like everybody's gone. We don't know which way up is potentially, but I think with all of the influx of Kyler and Jacoby and him being injured and this season being lost, I think next year will be the telltale. Yeah,
it's just wild that we're here, because a lot of Bengals fans obviously watched him at Ohio State, and he just felt so safe and like he was going to be like walk into the league and be like current T. Higgins. You know, like just big, strong, fast, physical. And it's just, it's surprising. It is, at least to me, but
it's not because he's a good kid. Like, it just sucks. It's
no,
like,
I know
the weight on the world on your shoulders. That's fine. It's not an original story, and the story's not written yet. Like, people say Malik Neighbors. I've played more games than Malik Neighbors in the NFL. You know, it's like the best abilities, availability in a lot of senses, and he's missed time after their bye week, but story's not done yet. The story's not done yet. Now, for me, defensively, Mike Gesicki and Chase Brown are my two that the Cardinals need to stop. Like, obviously, you're going to try and curtail Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Tight ends with the Cardinals, bad. Mike Gesicki, Joe Burrow, good. Chase Brown, I mean, he's a Bijan Robinson light, right? I mean, he's kind of Bijan Robinson had almost 170 all-purpose yards and a touchdown last week. Chase Brown could mirror that as well. So this offense is just a nightmare for the Arizona Cardinals going in.
He could, and his confidence is really high right now. He's over 1,200 yards from scrimmage for the year. Had 6 straight games with 100 yards from scrimmage earlier this season. It got snapped a few weeks ago, but got back on that side of things against the Dolphins. No, I think that's a big part of it. Like, if you're able to run the football and operate through Chase Brown, it's just going to open things up for Jamar and T. And it really becomes a pick your poison type of offense. And that's it. If Joe Burrow plays the way Joe Burrow played against the Dolphins, where he's just super clean, super efficient, accurate, well, you're going to put up points. And so that's an easy one that needs to happen. All eyes are on this defense. And I don't know. I don't know if they can do anything to convince me that they don't need significant changes in the offseason. It's just been so bad. But if they can show some sort of, hey, let's not let Trey McBride have 15 catches on us, because he very well could. That would be a huge key. In the turnovers, they're a defense. They gave up yards even last week, and then suddenly they were able to force a couple of turnovers, and they forced them. It wasn't like Quinn Ewers just threw them the ball. I mean, they were pretty nice plays. Batted play might not be a great decision, but if you can force a couple of turnovers, it clearly goes a long way for this defense that is vulnerable and could give up plenty of points.
Who's the best defensive player for the Bengals?
Well, it's obviously would have been Trey. It's not. DJ Turner, their corner. Yeah. And that would be that's going to be a fun matchup if he's been drawing the best receiver and guarding him. And so how do they go with that? What do they do? And then Dax Hill's been playing really well on the outside over the past month as well. He moved from nickel outside when Cam Taylor-Britt got hurt. So that corner tandem versus the Cardinals wide receivers could be interesting as well.
Yeah. I think this is just man, what if things panned out the way they were supposed to, and we're looking at a Week 17 game with two teams on the fringe of playoffs? This just have completely different aura around. Because I mean, the popcorn's there. Like the matchup's going to be fun, and it's just, damn it, may as well be a preseason game. I mean, the last time the Cardinals played the Bengals, Bengals had their way with them at State Farm Stadium a couple of years ago. Was that last year or 2 years ago?
It was 2 years ago. Yeah, because the Bengals needed it. Yeah, they were up against it a bit. They needed to win that game.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. It's I'm excited to watch the wide receivers for the Bengals on the same field as the Cardinals, because this is a huge test for Will Johnson. Like, if he's going to lead this charge, you heard it here first on December 20, whenever we're recording this. I'm not going to tell you when, that Budda Baker is probably going to be out after this year. I would there are a couple tea leaves. I don't have insider information. I'm reading human things. The fact that he got voted as a Pro Bowler in one of his worst years, like, other teams are watching that there's blood in the water with this team, and Budda Baker could be had. And he tweeted out last home game, thank you Cardinals fans. He didn't say for this year. He left it vague. So Will Johnson may need to be the face of this defense moving forward come next year. Yeah.
Wow.
It's still early to tell that.
Budda would be a trade, you're saying?
He's got 1 year left. He got an extension. They added 1 year. There's an out afterwards, but it's an obvious, trade for, restructure, extend, add another year. He's going to be 30.
Got it.
How for those who don't know who Budda Baker is, he is one of the most respected players, especially on a bad team in the NFL. Getting voted to a Pro Bowl makes me think other teams are looking like, hey, it's a perfect time to go get him.
Yeah. Yeah. Could totally see it. I mean, you mentioned it and I was like, oh, Budda Baker, right? And so other teams are certainly going to feel that way and have interest, man. It's hopefully it's a fun game. I do think it's going to be fun. I'll be there in person, so it better be fun. It better be worth the time. Don't fail me, Bengals Cardinals. But unfortunate. You're right that the popcorn that could be had doesn't have any kind of postseason ties.
In the 30s, do you think we're looking in the 30s?
It feels that way, doesn't it? Doesn't it? I mean,
I hope so.
Maybe 30s, 20s, one way or the other. Like if there's some
Cardinals can put up 30 points for once, yeah.
Yeah. Have they not? Have they? When's the?
They put up 30 against Dallas, I believe. But no, it's not been great. It's not been great.
Well, you could use that phrase to describe both of these teams. We're obviously going to have you covered all week long and Sunday with your post-game coverage as well. So check out Locked On Cardinals for more with Alex, and Locked On Bengals for more as well. Until next time, for Alex Clancy, I'm James Rapien. Thank you so much for watching and listening to Locked On Bengals and Locked On Cardinals on the Locked On Podcast Network.